that was quite a, yeah. How did we start with that? Oh, talking about Tokudo and
Yes.
then with the term priest and yeah, and so yeah.
It was
So yes,
quite a
anyway, I still like the idea of the growing out your hair and beard before the before Tokudo. You might start a, it's an informal tradition.
go totally hippie before I shave it all off.
Anyways, yeah.
All
So
right. Well, we continue
yeah,
on to the matter at
yeah.
hand.
You wanted to. You had some specific things you wanted to talk about from my video from
Well,
the
I have,
episode.
yeah,
You wanted to talk
actually,
about that some more. Episode 10 of my Reflecting Deeply series. My
mm,
most recent one of that series. Yeah. But what were you going to say?
yeah, I had a a text by Tonlon actually that I thought was kind of sort of it came to mind while I was watching your video. But before we do that, I was wondering, would you like to talk? Maybe we should talk more about. Um, I think you mentioned you have some more
Some other,
sort
yeah, things
of
that
things that have
sort of,
come to your attention.
yeah, kind of, because I'm listening again. I'm really, I'm really, I really want to make sure I've fully listened to, as much as I can the larger sutra before I move on to the smaller sutra and then the contemplation sutra and then you know, but and something else that came out of my listening of that was the part where it discusses was one of the things that where toward the beginning when it's talking about um, all of the um, um, uh, arhats that were there, and then bodhisattvas that were present for the at that gathering, um, and then it goes through explaining the the bodhisattva sort of journey, and then right through to their nirmanakaya um, um, cycle, if you like. Um, and I was the thought occurred to me that has I've it's occurred to me before
Mm-hmm.
this, but it's kind of become more real now. Whereas I kind of could see this with, like, say, the Lotus Sutra, what I'm about to say, with like the Lotus Sutra or some other sutras, that
Mm-hmm.
it just the act of reading it, listening to it, kind of will alter your mind stream, alter your. And I kind of, I wonder if that's the case with the Pure Land Sutras. I mean, that sounds so absurd for a Jodo Shinshu person to say, but in my journey, I thought, does it work the same way as something like the Lotus Sutra would to do that, or do you know what I mean? And but it was I had that question. I thought probably maybe possibly, but this time around doing this and kind of along the lines of what I was saying in my video about
Yeah.
Jin and Honi, I definitely feel like not feel like I kind of know that is the case with the Pure Land Sutras. You know
Mm.
that
Yeah.
it's part of the working. It's a it's part of the like
Yeah.
work
Yes.
that Amida does on our mind stream. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
I mean, we're still
Mm-hmm.
bamboo and all that. We're not achieving any kind of you know higher states or any kind of samadhis or what I mean. I'm just saying that I do. It's become very real since
Mm.
that moment I was talking about in my video. Since that, and it's just stayed with me that is the case with me
Yeah.
listening now. to it and in the
Yeah.
past. Even though I didn't really kind of
Yeah.
know that in the past, it wasn't real to me in the past as it is now, but it was still happening then. So that's one thing. And so that every single detail, and I've thought this about other sutras before, but every single detail and aspect of the sutra is significant, is doing that, is parts of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, so the name, this is something that's always thought, I've always thought this, that in the sutras, when they're mentioning this gathering, all the cast of, people who are present,
Yeah.
well, I should say not people. So, people, arhats, bodhisattvas, in some cases, other Buddhas, um, you know, beings of other realms, devas of all sorts, and
Mm-hmm.
are present, and they list the names, and you know what I mean, and on all
Yeah.
their retinue and how many they had, all these numbers. It's all part of that. It's all part of that, you know, and the
Mm-hmm.
especially like the names. I think there's a significance to yeah to that. It's just, and there's something that, like I said, it's occurred to me before, but now it's more actual. You know,
Yeah.
it's more Galactica actual. It's more it's more. You know what I mean? It's more um, like, yeah, that is what has
Yeah.
happened, kind of thing. Um, and so all these amazing names of these different bodhisattvas, well, even the arhats and the bodhisattvas and the
Mm-hmm.
Buddhas, the 50 past Buddhas, and all of that are important, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And someday I'd like to delve into that. But anyway, and it's part of this. It's not
Yeah.
just, oh yeah, okay, this is just to establish, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just to establish who was there, and you know, this is
Right.
all very significant aspects. And it's not just. It's important for that to be, because that's part of the five authentications of the sutras.
Mm-hmm.
Of you know, um, is it five things that are, and I can't remember them, what they are,
Mm-hmm.
all are, but and that's an important part, is who was there, who the audience is.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. You know what I'm saying? It goes beyond that to Amida working through, this is part of Amida's working to alter our mind
Yeah.
stream, and transfer his merit. It's his light, his
Mm.
to us, through that. So, and speaking of that, so there's another aspect. So going through the bodhisattva cycle,
Mm.
there's that point where it talks about, and this is, I'm thinking of this idea of the ego being exposed in the
Mm-hmm.
light of Amida, and that being part of the process of hitting the wall. That the ego in all of its conniving, manipulative ways, trying to put blocks up to this whole
Mm.
process, barriers and
Yeah.
doubts, and manufacturing all kinds of, what I mean, you know things to keep you from being open to this, keep me from being, so anyway, so kind of like, like maras, it's like internal maras, and I'm sure
Mm.
external don't ones, there's some that, but isn't there something with the maras where the they agreed not to interfere with um practitioners of Dharma, and do you know what I mean? um but
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
let's don't want to get into the weeds there. Just one thing I want to say is,
mhm.
is in the process of talking about the bodhisattva journey to becoming that nirmanakaya, Buddha,
Mm.
there's an
Mhm.
aspect of that it's almost seems like, yeah, Amida's Dharmakara Bodhisattva did that for us to become a Amida. So he's done that
Mm.
cycle for us to bring, but he kind of brings us through that cycle through his working,
Mhm.
though, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
So we come, in settled Shinjin. That's how, kind of part of the way we, become, the come to a stage of non-retrogression, like
Hmm.
equal to, a bodhisattva. So that, I just, when I think now, these are all new things, like since doing the reading this time, is that it's
Yeah.
kind of like that process of the bodhisattva that's talking about is what Dharmakara did for us and brought us
Yeah.
in on some certain level, on that Buddha mind level, on that Buddha nature level, did that to has done that for us and kind of brought us through that process to, or I should say, bringing us in the process of Jin and Honi to the state, to settle Shinjin and,
Hmm.
and so a stage of non-retrogression. So that was something that kind of occurred to me. It's just like these things are
Yeah.
just like popping out like crazy now. So that's one thing.
That's
And then
great.
another aspect of that, when it's talking about that journey, it gets to that point where
Mm.
the Buddha, the Buddha at the time, the Nirmanakaya station is saying is, comes to the point where they're sitting down now. They've had they've been given the branch by the Dewata so they can climb up, and they've been given the
Yeah.
auspicious grass by the other Dewa, or you know, and they've sat down, they're about ready, and they emit a great light to inform to inform Mara of what they're
Yeah.
about to do. And
What
it's kind
about what's about to go down?
of yeah, there's going to be a Dharma throwdown now. There's going to be, you know, and I just think, that light of Amida emitting his great light when it
Yeah.
hit, and then it emitted to us. It's kind of like our internal Maras and our
Uh-huh.
ego. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? See that light and go, okay, all right, we need to do
Kind of
something about
skedaddle.
this. Do you see what I mean? That's
Yeah, yeah. And
and that
what's
as part of this, the hitting the wall,
hmm
the exposure, the exposing of the ego, the exposing of our kleshas, the exposing of our bamboo ness. Um, the ego doesn't like it. Those internal Mars do not like it, and they want to, you know what I mean. And so
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like when that light comes, boom, yeah, it hits them. Okay, we gotta. Do you see what I mean? They'll come.
Uh-huh.
And that
Yeah.
it's the kind of a process that happens with us individually.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I think
just a
so.
thought.
Um, I mean, those are just great points. And what's really cool is that you are now like find discovering this for yourself, right? And that's why you said like it's becoming real because you are sort of tasting, as it were, the Dharma and directly, not
Yes.
not because someone
Yes.
told you, "Hey, have you read the larger sutra? It's pretty good stuff." But now you're really like digging into it, right? Like more, even more than you have in the past. Although, of course, you have in the past, and so um, that's just great.
I think
Your
it's kind
first,
of like in the past, I did it more with my head, and now
mm,
I'm doing it more with my heart. It's
yeah,
happened,
and that can
or I
make all
should
the
say, it was
difference.
happening more with my head. Now it's happening more with my heart,
Yeah,
mind, heart,
yeah,
mind, heart, rather than just mind.
right.
The heart
And
is
that
involved now. The heart is
Yeah.
much
And that
more.
that can make I think that could make all the difference. I mean, that's kind of the difference between relying on the meaning rather than the words.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
words are all about our intellect, our head, our, so to
Yeah.
speak, our need to
Or calculations.
categorize and
So the calculations happen.
calculate and discriminate things and give them labels. That's the world of words, right?
Yeah.
But then the world of meaning is deeper. The world of meaning is really more, like you said, more of the heart level and less of the superficial mind level. So making that shift from the words to the meaning, and then you're really getting that meaning that is there, that the words are pointing to. And to that, with that, in regards to that, I mean, what you said about the names of the bodhisattvas, the names of the arhats, everything. There's a passage in the larger sutra where it talks about the green lotus glowed with a green light, and the red lotus glowed with a red light, and the purple lotus glowed with the purple light, and the yellow lotus glowed with the yellow light, and the blue lotus glowed with the blue light. And it goes on and on like this. It's, traditionally and correctly, I think, every character in the sutra, and I think this goes for all Buddhist sects, not just Jodo Shinshu, but every character is important. I mean, it's and when it's recited, I mean, every character is recited. There's a theory and a tone for the way every single character in the sutra is recited. Shinran Chonin wrote actually handwritten commentaries on the sutras, and I was fortunate to see one. The
Wow.
actual his handwriting,
Yeah.
the actual commentary sutra at the museum in Kyoto, and it's just minute commentary on every single line, every single character. So yes, it's one thing that happens when we read the English translation, I feel sometimes, is we tend to read it like a novel, you know, like like a like a novel, really. I mean, like a modern, but really, in older times, I mean, the sutras weren't read like that. It was line by line,
Mm.
parsing every line for the meaning and as a sacred text ought to be approached. If you believe that this is the word of Shakyamuni, the Buddha Vakana, the word of the Buddha, then one of the characteristics of the Buddha's word is that he doesn't say stuff just to say stuff. you know,
Exactly.
everything he says, everything he says, as it says in the sutra, or in maybe in the Pali Suttas, every word spoken by the Buddha is well spoken. And
Indeed.
so every word, so just as you said, everything is well spoken. It's the
Every
Dharma
word,
that is
every
good in
sound, every yeah, good in the
yeah,
middle. I was just gonna say that.
yeah,
Good in
good
the
in the
middle,
beginning,
good in
good
the
in the
beginning,
middle,
good in
good
the
in
middle,
the
good at
end.
the end. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Just
Um,
like, and also
so I
it
think
made me think of the say it again. The word of the Buddha is say that again. The every word of the Buddha
every word spoken by the Tathagata is well spoken,
is
or
well
something to
spoken.
that effect
You
is
know,
in the
and it
sutras.
comes back to uh, what is what is what is hearing. What is true hearing is taking the Buddha at his word. It harkens back to that. But yeah,
Yeah. So I think that's a really important observation, and that once you have that perspective, suddenly you can see all these fingers pointing. You can see. It's not just one finger pointing to the moon. It's all
yeah,
these fingers are
yeah.
pointing, innumerable meaning, and so I think it's a very important realization. And then the other thing you said was about the when the Bodhisattva, the larger sutra gives kind of the archetypal life story of the Bodhisattva, or career, let's say, the
Yes,
career
the
description of the
cycle, the
Bodhisattva.
career, the
um,
bodhisattva path, the journey,
yeah,
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 the
and
heroic journey.
and part of that is the Bodhisattva, receives the auspicious grass. Is spread beneath the Bodhi tree. He sits down, and then he emits a great light. And like you said, according to um, I believe the hymns in praise of the Pure Land by Vasubandhu, um, which Shinran repeatedly quotes in his Wasan, his Japanese hymns, and so on. In fact, he often structured those hymns all on the Pure Land, the hymn in praise of the Pure Land by Vasubandhu Bodhisattva. Um, Amida is the light of wisdom of all Buddhas. So this light of all Buddhas is itself Amida, Buddha. Wow.
Yeah. Exactly.
And in
Oh,
fact, Shakyamuni himself was enlightened by the light that is Amida. That's why Amida is called the teacher of all Buddhas. Because all Buddhas are enlightened, awakened through the light of Amida.
it's very mind blowing. It starts to get when you think of the way that that all operates. You just yeah,
well,
and the
no
magnitude of
no working is true working. So
it. Yeah,
even if you try to think of it and
yeah,
conceptualize
exactly. Well, that's
it.
I was thinking in all of this too. No working is true working. That's exactly what I thought of when, on the one hand, I see this that every single
Mm,
name, word, sound
hmm.
is significant and is actually acting upon us. I'm still a bamboo, and I have my karmic limitations. So there's no way I'm going to be able to delve into every aspect of that and understand. Do you see what I mean? In fact, we probably shouldn't try to do that, but in some way. But yeah, that's exactly what I thought was that no working is true working. I'm not going to be
Well,
able to. I'm not going to be able to comprehend or understand all that. Just know, I just knowing that it is happening. That is a reality of the sutra. That is a reality of these
yeah,
words and their meaning.
yeah, and the the content of enlightenment and the uh what enlightenment is by definition incomprehensible to an unenlightened person. And that's what Bambu means, is just an unenlightened person. That's how the word term was used by the historical Buddha.
But on the other
Because
hand, we should listen with our whole heart, their whole being. As Renyu said, we should be
yeah,
listening with our
and
whole heart being to whatever, to the furthest. That to me says to the fullest extent of your karmic limitations as a bamboo, you still should be
yeah,
to the you should take it as far as you can.
yeah, totally.
And then but always remember you are a bamboo and your limitations. So yeah, that's
Well,
kind of what
and
it.
so because the world of enlightenment is incomprehensible and it transcends language, it
Yeah.
transcends human language. The Buddha takes that truth which is beyond words and puts it into words for us, for our benefit. And that's what the sutras are. It's the truth that is beyond description, beyond words, put into words for us, so that we can have some understanding of it, right? So that we can, hear it and believe it and put it into practice. So, it's no small observation. It's actually a really important insight as to the whole, how it all works, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. For that's, I suppose, for humans or humanoids that have minds like we do and language like we do, that's the skill, and that's the means of, that's part of, not fully,
Mm,
but part of the means of transmission
yeah.
of the Dharma, for bodhisattvas and Buddhas to work with us. My Dharma brothers and I are always fascinated with, in one of the sutras, there's a world that's all just smells. There's a realm
Oh,
that's all just smells, and I just think these different realms are going to have different means of transmission. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas there working with
yeah,
those beings, helping those beings are going to be transmitting differently. You know, just
right.
it's a different language. So it's through smells. Just imagine
Yeah,
the the amazing sweetness of the of the
yeah.
Dharma in that world. But anyway,
And isn't there a world too where light is used for sound? And I always thought that is incredible because even with our modern technology, we literally use light for sound to transmit sound via radio and
yes,
and measuring stars, the things that and in the sutra,
wow,
I
yeah,
forget which sutra it is. I don't know if it's the largest sutra or not, but it does somewhere in the Buddhist canon. There is reference to a world where light is used for sound. And I thought, and it's amazing because
yeah,
light actually has wave-like properties,
properties,
and we
exactly,
actually
yeah,
like. I mean, literally, a laser disc, to use a
is
very
transmitting
old,
sound. Yeah,
is
yeah,
literally
yeah,
transmitting sound with the use of light.
like yeah, yeah, exactly. So there it is in the sutras, ancient
And there it
sutras.
is in the sutras, which were written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And then you have those people that what is it called, synesthesia, that um like taste color. There's humans,
Oh
you know,
yeah, 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 yeah,
there's
yeah.
humans that are kind of, so I
Right.
always wonder, are they
Yes.
connected to
Yeah, they can
another,
hear.
do they have
There
karmic
are
ties
people.
to a realm where that,
Yeah, in
it's a
fact,
different, do you know what I mean? Where things are perceived or,
yeah.
or communicated differently, anyway. But yeah, they kind of see, or they,
Mhm.
they they smell or and taste colors. Do you know what I mean? Like things
There,
have
I think there's different forms, but I think
there's different
I
forms of it. Yeah,
actually
like the different
had a
senses, they
friend.
have a different. They do another one of their senses is activated by what would normally be just sight or hearing or taste. Something else is actually active
Mm,
and interpreting that, you know, in a different way. I
yeah,
always think,
yeah.
are they connected to? Do they have sort of karmic ties to another? Do you know
That'd
what I
be
mean?
interesting. I
Another
think
world, another in the Buddhist
it's
cosmology. But anyway,
one of the what is it? One of the manifestations of that phenomenon is I think people can, for example, when they hear music, they see colors and shapes
yes,
and vice versa
yes,
and that kind of thing. Yeah. For me though, it's not so much like do they have, some sort of
yeah, yeah.
interdimensional portal to another world. It's probably more,
Well,
I
that's
think
not really what I
more
was
about,
saying. I was just saying in the Buddhist sense of karmic ties. Like I say,
right.
I seem to have similarities or ties to the ghost, realm and that sort of thing. I didn't mean like they were connected with, I just meant, yeah. Anyway, in the Buddhist kind of sense, I'm
Right.
a bit more traditional in my Buddhist beliefs and those with those kinds of things. I would say, um, but anyway,
Well, I think my opinion or my
yeah,
perspective, let's say, would be something probably more along the lines of if you know about the way the mind works in terms of perception of objects and so on. It's very interesting that
yeah,
um, beings who are in the same sort of so to speak environment can actually be sort of seeing that
yes,
environment in different ways,
yes,
right? So
yes,
one of
yes,
the classic examples is like, um, what might be a jeweled floor for a god or a goddess is a river for fish to swim in, and for fish it's
Yes.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
air, but for people it's like water, and so on and so
Yep.
forth. So that's kind of a classic example. But
Or the and
yeah, it's
for the
really
ghost realm, it's
interesting.
like a river of fire. It's a river of fire or something, or it's
Yeah,
completely dry, or yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting for sure. I mean, who knows, right?
No,
It's fun.
it's true. Only Buddhists and Bodhisattvas would
Yeah.
can really say for sure. But the um, um, I think that even happens with like you pointed that out with the humans seeing and experiencing things very differently. So we're kind of, I think we're in the human realm. We're in the, we're in the Manaloka, but I
Mm,
think there's different worlds within that. Do you know what I mean? People are in different kind of
mm.
parts of the human world, if you see what I mean.
Well, it's
Different.
written
They
right
see,
there. Yeah.
experience, and see things very differently. Like examples, like my wife and I, we smell completely different things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm like, can you not smell that? It's it's terrible. And she's like, no, but then she'll smell something. It's like, can you not smell that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's consistent. It's the same kinds of
Right.
thing consistently that she can detect. I can't, and other things I can. But anyway, that's just
Yeah.
a very concrete example.
Yeah,
Wow.
and in Buddhism, of course, the animal world is regarded as a separate
Yeah.
realm, dharma, or a
Yeah.
separate world, and even though animals and
We
people are
share
in
it.
the same
We
environment,
share that. Yeah.
right? And of course, deities, gods, and the heavens in ancient times were also believed to share the same space, essentially,
Oh
as
yeah.
humans,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because they could come down to
The
Earth
lower,
and
especially the Buma Devas, Buma Devas, the lower Devas,
yeah.
they're here with us. Yeah.
So
Well,
interesting
anyway,
stuff.
the way we got onto all this was,
Yes.
yeah,
How did we?
it just emphasizes, I suppose, looking at all these different, not just the different worlds of Buddhism, but within each world, it's kind of like the 3,000 worlds in a single thought moment, of a
Hmm.
single moment of
Mhm. Yeah,
time
yeah,
from
yeah.
the Lotus Sutra of you know
Right.
all the worlds are contained within each of the worlds, and but it just emphasizes the amazing skill and power and of the Dharma that it can reach.
Yeah.
Every single, do you know what I mean? There's a way that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas find to transmit that to every being everywhere. And Amida through Amida,
Right.
through Amida's light, it's transmitted to every single one of those, and there's upaya for every single different. Do you know what I mean? It's just that's kind of mind blowing in itself.
Amazing. Yeah. And I mean, at some level, of course, every bodhisattva can be sort of regarded as a manifestation or expression of
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
Buddha, right?
It's a Buddha.
Of
Yeah, or of a
light
Buddha. Yeah, they're
and so
actually a Buddha in disguise. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In the causal stage, as it were. Oh, yeah. Amazing stuff. I think the most amazing in terms of the language part is that Amida Buddha, vowed to become the name, and then vowed that that name would be heard throughout all space time, so that we could hear it.
Yeah.
Is to
Yeah.
me the most incredible, skillful use of what can actually reach us, right?
Yes.
Because no other Buddha, I think, uh, uh, a a very he was actually a scholar, a poet, and also a Hongwan-ji cleric, I guess I should say, um, who recently actually passed away a couple of years ago. In fact, wrote a series of books that are commentaries on the Wasan, and he pointed out that the how amazing it is that the Buddha vowed to become language, to become Namo Amida Butsu. Those 6 characters or those 10 characters or whatever form of the name you are you are using in order to be heard and be proclaimed by everyone everywhere, is really kind of just wow when you think about it.
Yeah. In human terms, when you think about it, it almost seems, you know, Dharmakara, it almost seems audacious when he's before Lucas Maharaja and and tells him his aspiration, declares his aspiration. It's almost kind of, it's almost like, okay, you want to
Yeah.
outshine you want to outdo every single Buddha everywhere ever in every universe. Well, let me
Yeah.
get this straight. Let me get this straight. And it's almost like for our benefit, us humans here. It's almost like for our benefit. Lakshmana Raja said, it comes back and says, "Well, you should know if that's what you. Then don't you
Yeah.
know? Why are you asking me to teach you? Do you know what I mean? It's almost for our like sort of
Yeah.
anyway. But then obviously that's part of the asking of the questions that's part of how the teaching obviously arises.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's another thing. Speaking of which, another
Yes.
thing that has come out in this
Mm.
my current listening reading of the larger
Mm-hmm.
sutra was related to that. The importance of questions, of Dharma dialogue, the importance of Dharma dialogue when from the beginning, this is like in the beginning of the sutra again, after it explains the audience, and then you know it describes the countenance of
Yeah.
at that time, and then describes the countenance of Shakyamuni Buddha, and Ananda perceives this in his wisdom, and um, you know expresses does
Mm.
bears his shoulder, and you know bows and all of that, and then
Mm.
asks his question. Says he gives his observation that this is what's
Mm.
happening with you, your countenance, and and
Yeah.
explains all of the various nuances of that he perceives, and then
Mm.
says or observes, and then asks what is the reason for this, what you know
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and Shakyamuni's reply, asking him, was this given you to by a god? Was this question you urged by a dewa
Yeah.
to, or some other being to, and he said, no, I asked this of my own accord. And Shakyamuni praises him for his question. His, there's this whole thing about that, the importance
Yeah.
of the question, and I thought that, and it made me think of all that in other sutras too, where the key figure, whether it's Shariputra or Ananda, who's his main, or Maitreya, or whoever's asking the question that's being, um, there's this vast importance to that question being answered, so the Dharma can be transmitted, so the
Yeah.
sutras can be transmitted, and when that just that all kind of you know that came into my reflections, and then I said, and then it just hit me like the importance that's shining light on the importance of Dharma dialogue, to ask every question that you have, no matter what
Yes.
is the importance of that. Not just, and it's not just for you, it's for all, it's for, do you know what I mean? It's for everyone. It's not
Yeah.
just, um, so the huge importance of in Jodo Shinshu, um, teaching of the
Yeah.
Dharma dialogue, and the as part of deep listening, and as part of the whole path that Amida's path, Amida's practice, of Amida's realization, all that of the asking the questions.
Hmm.
It just that's what it really brought out for me, or shone a light on suddenly. I
It
just
is.
never had
Yeah.
kind of seen that before, or that had never
Yeah.
occurred to me before until now. But that whole dialogue with about the question that he asked was, it's so important, um,
Yeah.
to the whole process of the Dharma being transmitted, the Sutra being transmitted, the truth being transmitted, um, the process of
Mm.
Jinen and Honi, of Amida's, the working of the vow, of the Dharma, of everything. It's so key. So that just it just made sense
Yeah.
to
And
me.
you know what's fascinating that I just now realized?
Okay, can I just ask one more question? Like, and
Yes.
it made me think of, like, no matter what the question is, no matter how fearful you are about asking it, or even having it, or even like
Mm.
when um uh uh who asked the question? Yenbo asked the question
Hmm.
about,
Right.
I
Yeah.
actually kind of don't want to go to Pure Land. Like, what does that, does that, does
Yeah.
that mean, what does that mean? Why, I can't remember what the exact question was, but he explained,
Right.
look, I don't always really want to go to the Pure Land
Yeah.
all the time. I kind of like aspects of my life here, and you
Right.
know, and so, does that mean I can't remember the question, but
Yeah,
it
that's more or less what
harkens
he
me
said.
right now back to that. Like, no matter
Yeah.
what the question is, it's important. It's important for you to ask it in this path, in your Dharma dialogues, in your deep listening. Ask the
Hmm.
question. If the question arises, you should ask it. If you have that question, you better
Yeah.
ask it. You know?
And that goes back to, what we kind of mentioned, I think, or mentioned last time, is that, from the very beginning, even in the very earliest sutras and so on, or what are believed to be, um, the Dharma takes arises as a dialogue of question and answer, and the most interesting thing is oftentimes, it's not just people who would ask Shakyamuni, but sometimes he would ask back. One of the most
Yes.
common responses is, "What do you think?" Is like he says all the time in the Pali Canon. What do you think? What do you think, O monks? What do you think, O bhikkhus? If a person does such and so, then how is it with that person? Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
His
Sometimes
the
we call
question from the
this.
Buddha is part of the transmission. Now, it makes me think. Well, continue with your thought in a second, but I just want to get this in here because I'll forget
Oh,
it.
go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Is it makes me think, part of you asking that question, part of that's the Buddha giving you the question. That's the Buddha giving you the question to transmit the Dharma. So
yeah,
Amida Buddha is going to be doing the same thing. That's a part of the Buddha's role.
yeah,
So if you have a
yeah.
question, it ain't necessarily just from you. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
The
Yeah,
Buddha, like, you're not going to get to this question, but you need to
yeah,
ask it. So I'm gonna put this in you. Do you see? I'm
yeah,
gonna put this question. I'm gonna give you this question.
yeah,
Kind of like there, like the Buddha asked the
yeah.
question back to, because they're not going to get it any other
Yeah.
way until they
Well,
have that
that's the
dialogue.
whole.
Do that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the whole point, right? Is to get our minds, our bono, our klesha bound, our three poisons riddled minds to start to work, and the Buddha does that by throwing a question in there, and then we think, huh, yeah, I haven't thought about that before. So, it's all part of the skillful means. But what struck me about Ananda's question is, sometimes in Buddhist textual tradition, um, a god, it'll be said that like a deity prompts a question, or it's said that the god Brahma, I think it is, sort of requested that the Buddha turn the wheel of the Dharma, for the benefit of the world and so on. And what's interesting about and sometimes I think that's done to kind of give prestige to the question or to the, because if a god said it, if it came from a god, then it must be even better than if just some person had thought it up, right? You know what I mean? Like there's that kind of thinking
Yeah,
behind
yeah,
that
yeah.
that you can sort of see, right, where it makes sense. But in the larger sutra, when with the Ananda's question, is it goes out of the way to point out that it wasn't a question that was prompted by a
Yes.
god, which is really interesting, if you think about it. Like this is a question that came from
Oh,
Ananda
yeah, of
and
his
not
own accord.
from,
Rose.
it wasn't orchestrated, so to speak, by some, higher
It was his
deity.
response. Boom. It was his response to seeing the Buddha's
Yes,
light.
exactly.
His response.
Yes,
We've talked about the response. There needs to be a response. Namo Amida Butsu. There needs to be a
absolutely.
response.
Yeah, yeah,
There needs
yeah.
to be a response
Not to a god or
to
any other
to the
thing,
light.
but
Yeah,
to the
a
light
direct
of
response
suffering.
to the light. Yeah,
Yeah.
the teaching is for you alone, for me alone. So the response has to be, it has to be from me. It can't be aided by a god or you know,
Boom.
yeah, it's a response.
I would call that a Dharma mic drop that just happened.
Hossu-Drop, Hossu-Drop, boom.
when when a mic drops with no hand to hold it, it's a koan, a koan perhaps that
There's
we should.
definitely a koan in there.
There's going to be something in there.
Oh, oh, that's great.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. You know what I love about this is we have just, discussed, had an amazing, what I would consider to be a really great discussion about just like a tiny part of the larger sutra. And
yeah,
we haven't even
like,
gotten to
yeah,
to Shinron or Nagarjuna or the other sutras. I mean, I have
exactly.
a feeling this is going to take a lifetime,
It's-
which is what it's supposed to do.
I think it's probably been taking lifetimes. Anyway, yeah.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is it is pretty mind blowing. Um yeah, and that's just everything we discussed today was just from the opening, pretty much. The
Yeah.
first like
The opening up to where Ananda asks the question.
yeah. I remember watching a series, actually a couple of series. One was a sort of traditional Chinese uh
Hmm.
uh of a Chinese priest. I can't think of what's the terminology for the Chinese
Monk.
monk. Yeah, monk, I guess it's monk. Yeah. So monk, and um his presentation, it was like 12 episodes, and it was on, he was teaching about Pure Land Buddhism, and it was on
Hmm.
the sutra, and he went into such detail. I was like, in every single episode, and he still didn't was only scratching the surface, but went into
Mm.
like all in such detail. I was like, wow, you know. And at the time, I wasn't as patient, so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get to the actual Pure Land,
Yeah.
teaching, but they were, and he was rightly focusing on all these things like we were mentioning, names of the
Mm.
Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and you know what I mean. And it just went through this really massive detail. I think it actually was longer than 12 episodes. I think it was like 14 or 15 episodes of
Mm.
like 2 hours long or 3 hours long kind of thing. And I saw a
Was it
similar one that was I think a Vajrayana nun, Vajrayana Tibetan
mm,
Buddhist
mhm.
nun.
Yeah.
Um, I think somewhere in North America that that gave her this really huge,
Hmm.
detailed on just the uh what is it, the puja, the Amida Amitabha puja, just that there,
Hmm.
that doesn't require the one that doesn't require an empowerment in the
Oh,
tradition. And it
I don't
just
know.
was just, again, like 20 episodes of just this excruciating
Wow.
detail about, but now I look back and I didn't, at the time I didn't have patience. I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to get to I want to get to what's the
Yeah.
Amida Pure Land teaching here. But now I look back and I think, yeah, of course, yeah, every single thing is the
Yeah.
Dharma, every single moment of that.
Yeah. Well, and every single moment of our lives is also the Dharma, being in a sense. Because if we don't, there was this really great quote I think I shared on Facebook by uh uh what's his name, the French uh Tibetan monk. He was actually originally a physicist, and he converted to Tibetan Buddhism and became a Mathieu Ricard. Mathieu Ricard. He said, the third form of laziness is not being aware of what is truly important. For example, not realizing that it is essential to give meaning to one's existence, and thinking that there are 100 small tasks to complete before dedicating oneself to what truly matters in life. Obviously, these tasks will continue to pile up like ocean waves. One may hope that the waves will cease one day, but unless one abandons their activities, even unfinished ones, there will never be an end. The risk then is to never pay attention to what truly matters, which is, I would say, what truly matters is the call of Amida that is calling to us right here and now, you know. And so when we become aware, kind of like you said, the working, that it's all the working of Jinen and Honi, and that it's all the working that has been prepared for us by Dharmakara, then that kind of changes your, I mean, and of course you're still going to hit the wall. you're
Yeah,
still going to you're still going to have issues. You still have problems. I have problems. We're Bombu. Bono, as Shinron says, never ceases until the day we die. I mean, it's always going to be there. But your your perspective, I think, changes. And that, I mean, in Buddhism, of course, I mean, the mind is the important, the most important aspect. And so in that sense, you know, kind of cultivating an awareness of chomon, of listening to, of hearing the Dharma, not just when we're reading the larger sutra, which
yes,
of course is wonderful, but also when we're outside taking a walk,
exactly.
pottering about in the garden, or messing about in boats, or I mean, whatever it is we're
What we're
doing.
doing. Yes, agreed.
And we can always say Namu Amida Butsu. Always. Like Rinyo says, like Shandao says, waking, sleeping, rising, walking, standing up, sitting down, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. Namu Amida Butsu.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's all I wanted to
I
say.
think no, it's yeah. I think this discussion has gone on for as long as it had to.
Yes.
I think we've
And
covered what was to be discussed today.
Yes, I agree. And let's, keep, listening, reading Sutra. Maybe just if something comes up, for next week, we can just continue
Yeah,
discuss that.
definitely.
I do have a text that we can discuss at some point, but there's no hurry. I mean, it's
Okay.
related to something that you brought up in your video, but
Okay.
it's not going. It won't disappear if we don't discuss it. So it'll be there.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I have a bit longer today if you wanted to kind of end this discussion and then start a new sort of
Yeah, I
episode, as
would
it were.
like to. The text is a little bit long, and I
Oh,
think
okay.
we probably dedicate a full
Few
session
episodes.
to it
Full. Okay. Yeah.
to give
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Okay.
justice.
Couple of. Yeah. Okay.
So maybe we should save it for like a
Another.
full
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
episode.
Oh, excellent. Well, then I think it's time to say some Nembutsu to
Yes, the
take this
best
out.
part. The best part of
Indeed.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda.
All right.
All right. Well, have a great day. I don't know if
And
it's
you?
sunny
Great evening.
in Merry England, but
Yeah, it kind of off and on has been.
as sunny as
I
it
mean,
gets.
we're in August now, so summer is a kind of relative term once August hits the UK.
Right.
So yeah, but I still enjoy it. We're I don't know, we're close enough to the seaside now, kind of within 14 minutes to an hour anyway,
Oh,
part that I
right.
feel like I can feel that air, the seaside, so I don't mind as much. Actually, I don't mind actually the overcastness of the UK at all. This is one weird thing about me. I find it relaxing in a way.
Yeah.
So when
Oh,
it's sunny, great. When it's overcast, I'm kind of like, and rainy, I like that too. Do you know what I mean? It's just
a man
I'm a
for
bit
all
weird in that
seasons.
sense. But I have adopted the British habit of talking far too much about the weather. So I talk far too much about the more
Okay.
about the weather than it should just even be discussed. I have my favorite. I have my favorite, motorway services. So I'm officially a, you know, do you know what I mean?
Officially
And there's other ways that I've become very, Britified. But
quintessentially British.
yeah, 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 exactly. So, anyways,
Anyway,
right.
yeah, that's great.
Take care.
Take
Have
care.
a great night, and we'll talk to you next week, or well,
All
and
right.
in the week,
Sounds good.
via messenger.
Yeah.
All right. Take
You as
care.
well.
All the best.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.